Born in Dublin, Colin Fassnidge worked in the fiery kitchens of Ireland, Britain and Europe. And I'm not just talking about the fiery flames, including training with restaurant royalty in England, Raymond Blanc. Now, a hardcore experience, he says, more like a prison camp than a workplace. But 21 years ago, he came down under with a mate on a holiday, and that began an award-winning career in Australia. But like most Irishmen, he has been known to have a temper. So we'll prod very carefully tonight. Colin Fassnidge, welcome to the couch.
How are you?
You've gone very well. You don't look as if you could have a temper.
No, pre-daughters I had a temper. Then I had daughters, and now I'm just nothing.
They've mellowed you.
I'm the lowest in the house. I belong in the bottom.
I would also be testy if my workplace was a steamy, hot, sweaty kitchen with no windows, and you're in there sometimes 12 hours straight. It's not a great workplace.
Maybe more than 12, but it used to be before the laws changed. Right. Yeah, it is a very hard job, but it's like any job. If you've got a passion for it, it's not a job.
Yeah.
And you learn your craft. I learned with some of the best chefs in the world, Raymond Blanc, Gordon Ramsay, and I applied my trade, and I loved it. But it is a very hard job. If you don't like it, it's the highest: drugs, drink, suicide, divorce. You know that with paramedics, it's a very stressful job. And now, obviously, TV's made it fashionable and all the kids want to do it. So the kids go into it now and realise it's actually a horrible job. Like, you don't have your weekends, you're hot, you're sweaty, and you don't get paid a lot. So it is what it is.
And while everyone's having fun and enjoying great food, you're working in a hot kitchen.
Yeah, and then you end up marrying a waitress, which I did, or a manager. And that's the way hospitality works. So it's very... you keep it in together.
That's interesting. Not the same in politics, Nicole Flint. There's no fraternisation within the halls of Parliament House at all, ever, would there?
No, of course not. Not since we moved to New Parliament House, which is so much bigger than Old Parliament House. New Parliament House, you can kind of hide in your office. Old Parliament House, I think everyone was sort of sitting in each other's offices constantly because they didn't have enough room for everyone. So it was a lot more social. I think we lost the social aspect when we moved to New Parliament House.
A little bit about that. Andrew Gaze, you've got some culinary skill. It's renowned in the Gaze family, this culinary skill of yours.
Well, I don't know whether you call it skill. What it is a great passion and determination to uphold my end in the family household. But no, I'm very limited. I can do a magnificent risotto, and it's got to be a chicken risotto, of course. So and risotto's not easy. It takes a bit of a skill, and then between that and alternating between that and the chicken schnitzel. That is my area of expertise. I stay in my lane and I just try and do that at a high quality and then leave it at that.
And what about seafood? Where you come from, Nicole Flint, you have access to some of the great seafood in South Australia. You must be able to cook some of that.
Look, I was incredibly lucky to grow up down in the southeast of South Australia, right near Coonawarra. Mum and Dad are beef and lamb producers, and our farm is literally right on the coast. And so my dad is a frustrated amateur crayfisherman, or a frustrated professional crayfisherman, so he takes his Southern Rock lobster fishing very, very seriously over the summer. So I'm very lucky to get a little bit of lobster now and then. And one of my signature dishes that I only managed to pull out when they've been kind enough to give me some lobster is lobster thermidor, made the proper French way. You make a wine stock, a fish stock, a bechamel sauce, put it all together, and you've got a really special dish. All right, dinner at your place after this shoot. So go back. That's all very simple. That's all very normal.
So let's talk about my basketball.
Yes. We'll get to your basketball. But you talk about offal and offcuts like they're wonderful delicacies. And most of us, as kids, I remember being brought up on crumb brains and liver and kidneys. You have made that acceptable. You've retrofitted all of that again.
Well, I think a lot of it to do with cooking is, you talk about your dad's cooking or whatever, it's how you were brought up. And, like, the differentiate between different chefs is what you ate growing up sort of makes what you are older. So we ate a lot of stews, a lot of offal growing up, because that's what was cheap at the time. And I'm from Ireland, you know, snowing, we're all poor.
All of you. There's not a millionaire in sight.
But that was something like the table for me was a place of love, a place we all sat around, we talked. You know, we didn't have mobile phones or any of this. Like, we had one phone in the hall that got taken off, at meal times. So meal times were all about what you were eating. So it's a thing of fondness for me. And as you grow up working with Oz Harvest and stuff like that, and people who can't afford to eat, like, why buy a whole animal and just use the fillets and get rid of the rest? Like, in this day and age, waste should be eliminated. So that it's a big part of waste, whether it's about the animal, the fish, or a vegetable. You know, nothing should be going in the bin. There's always a use.
Colin, you were head chef of 10 years now, 2 hats, part owner of 414. You've set up a soup kitchen recently while we've been in the midst of COVID.
I am now. I used to have hats and restaurants. Now I run a soup kitchen. Head chef of a soup kitchen. When COVID hit, we didn't know what was going to happen. The government said, send all your employees from overseas back home. Like, great, well done, you know. So these guys had no money. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't have the JobKeeper. Our building was closing down. They were turning off all the lights to power because it was cheaper to keep the building closed, because it's not my building. So we had 10 grand's worth of food. So what we did is we cooked it all up. We gave it to hospitality workers who couldn't, feed themselves, who weren't getting paid. Then it turned into the local area. Then it turned into a lot of Qantas staff, a lot of Virgin staff, because that's around where we work. And now we just keep it going every week. So we get, like, parents turning up. It's pretty bad out there at the moment. There is JobKeeper, but we get parents turning up with their kids, like a dad who one day had a job and his wife or worked for the airlines, now are unemployed, to come to our car park on a Monday and we hand out meals for free. And we make a joke out of it. You know, we've got too much food, come on in. So all the suppliers now supply us. And we get donations and we buy from the suppliers. So
wonderfully benevolent. What a great thing to do at this time.
It is, and it was good for me when everything went a bit wrong, because it was good for my head as well. But it's great every Monday to see just a little bit of happiness you give to people.
Meanwhile, how many restaurants do you think will fold before the end of the year in Australia?
I reckon 40%. Because at the moment, we're on a false economy. Restaurants make very little money as it is. So now we're paying wages, which we couldn't really afford to do before because, you know, the price of food and whatever. And people are paying, they're not counting the wages into their final cost at the moment. So when the wages get dropped again, we're going to lose a lot. People are packing up now because the price of premises, they haven't dropped the rents. No. A lot of them haven't dropped. But there
are people like you with 6 restaurants in certain cities. Yeah. 6?
So I've got one in Pyrmont, which used to do 200 covers a day, now it does 20. Because no one's gone back to work in the city. The city's a ghost town.
Yeah.
And the one in Banksia we got was busy for the 4 weeks when we reopened. So, like, everyone went crazy, let's go out. Now it's like it's doing half again because people know that there is, you know, a crash coming and they're watching their pennies. They're basically taking free food from me in a supermarket, in a car park. It's going to get a lot worse.
Yeah. Nicole Flint, everyone talks about this cliff. They had to extend JobKeeper and JobSeeker, and I like the fact that there's I guess a demolition of it, that it's actually being reduced as we go forward, but there has to be a time when all of this doesn't look so good on the balance sheet, where people say, well, if you get rid of the payment, we don't have an economy to work in, we're closed.
It is such a difficult time for our entire nation, and Colin has just spoken beautifully about what this actually means to business people, to business owners, to their employees and their families. So it was essential that we extended the JobKeeper as we have, and also extended the JobSeeker. They were both supposed to end in September, and we've extended it out. But it's going to be a really tough road back, which is why we need to see as much of our economy getting back to normal as quickly as possible. And that's been the Prime Minister's message to all of the states and territories. Please get reopened as soon as you can. And Prime Minister Scott Morrison keeps holding up New South Wales as one of the benchmarks. Here in South Australia, I think we were a little bit slow to get reopened, but now we're in pretty good shape. We just need everyone who can afford to get out and support every single local business in your area, because that's how we will slowly start to move out of this. And then, of course, the Treasurer Josh Frydenberg will hand down the budget in October, and I'm sure that we'll see more announcements as to what we, the federal government, will do from there. And I'm looking forward to seeing a lot more input from the state and territory governments too. And
in a mental sense, Andrew Gage, you're in the midst of one of the worst lockdowns that any state and city has been subject to in the history of this country. How are you coping, and how is your family coping?
Yeah, it's tough. It's one that it's that balancing act by appreciating and understanding the health issues. And with both my wife and myself, we have elderly parents. We absolutely acutely aware of how important it is that we've got to create a safe environment. So no greater interest than self-interest, and the love that we have for our parents is such that it drives us that we do nothing but pay homage and gratitude for the sacrifices that people are making, because they are very, very vulnerable. But certainly from a basketball standpoint and a sporting standpoint, it's going to have a significant role when we finally get to recovery. The way in which sport can bring people together, it can excite a community, it help economically. There's such a huge role that sport's going to play once it is safe to reopen. But it is hard for me personally, because two of my closest and dearest friends are in a situation where their businesses are in dire circumstances, and it's going to be tough for them to recover. So it's a real balancing act that we've got to go through. But hopefully, with the support of both federally and state, and I think both federally and state governments have done a really good job to try and guide us through this process, and provided they continue to collaborate, work with each other, I'm extremely confident that we'll get it out of this as best we can, and good things and good times lie ahead.
Yeah, I hope that's...
See, I think Andrew's ready for his parliamentary career there after those comments, Chris.
Yeah, very, very statesman-like, Andrew Gay. Statesman-like.
Very statesman-like.
No, not at all. Just that's just the reality in which I live, and it's hard here in Victoria, but certainly appreciate the support we get from everyone from all the other states. It's great to see that they've got tremendous compassion for what we're going through.
But you're going through it in a hectic way, because all the Gays' kids have come back to live with Dad and Mum, I understand.
That's it.
But you've got all the old board games out that have got all the dust and the spiderwebs on them.
My word, it's fantastic. I don't know whether my kids love it, but I love having my kids here. If I had my way, they'd stay here for the rest of their lives. But
no way, Dad. That was what they just said.
No, I know, but you kind of go old school, because we're spending so much time together. We bring out all the old board games, and we have dress ups, and we try and figure out a way to get through this, notwithstanding that they are going through some tough times as well because of the restrictions that are in place. But just got to figure out a way to get through this period. And if we do it collectively, I generally believe that you've got a far better chance of getting through it.
Yeah.